Recently, I have passed the Istio Certified Associate exam, and I want to share with you some tips and tricks that might help you to do the same. At the beginning of the exam, you get 16 to 17 questions and you have 2 hours to do them. I did everything in 60 minutes and scored 90. On the exam, you will have every task that is related to one of the 4 subjects. As you see on the screen, the biggest one is the traffic management. The way I was doing exam, I split the screen into the 3 parts. On the left side I had the tasks, on the center I had the terminal, and on the right hand side I had the docs. So I was reading the task, I was performing the task in the terminal, and all the supplementary information, the documentation I had on the right side. So that means that I didn't need to switch between the screens, and it saved some bit of a time for me. When I wanted to apply the commands I already did, I used the Ctrl-R to search for them. And the quite important recommendation is to never write the YAML files from the scratch. You can go to the documentation, copy them, and paste into the Vim editor. Then you can tweak them for the task you get. Okay, because this approach is quite error-prone, so it's better to copy-paste. Once you finish with all the tasks, you can go backwards from the very last task you did to the very first, and doing so you can review the solutions you did and probably find some mistakes. If you want to use the Istio features for the traffic routing, the circuit breaking, or whatever, you need to understand that Istio sidecars might be running alongside your applications, and you have 2 ways to enable that. First of all, you can label the namespace and then restart the workloads with kubectl rollout restart. If you want to remove the namespace, you can do it like that. You specify the name of the label and type the minus at the end. And the second approach is applying the sidecars to particular workload. You have some manifest file and you just use that as an input for the istioctl command. You apply it, and after that it should work. If something goes wrong, you can analyze with istioctl analyze command. If you did apply it, but still don't see any sidecars running, there might be the problem that your workload is annotated with the sidecar istio inject set to false. Once you remove this annotation and restart the application, the sidecar should spin up. Okay, if you want to install the different version of the Istio and make so that you have several versions running simultaneously, you can do that with Istio-ctl install and set the revision. When you do the kubectl get pods, you will see several versions of the Istio-d running on your cluster. Then you set the tag for your revision, and you can use this revision to run the different version of the sidecars in some particular namespace. But what's important here, you need to remove the Istio inject label, because if you will have both the Istio inject label and the revision label, Istio will not know what the sidecar to inject into your workload, so keep in mind that. Then you restart the application and it should be fine. So on the ambient mesh, I didn't get any questions related to the ambient mesh, given it was in the exam curriculum. If we want to install that, we need to use the istioctl with the profile set to the ambient. For the L4 capabilities, we need to label the namespace with the data plane mode set to ambient. For the L7 features, we need to use the following label. It's the istio use waypoint and the waypoint name. Usually that's waypoint. Okay. On the traffic management, you can use the gateway to expose your application externally. You specify the host names and the ports it accepts the traffic on. Also, you can provide the secret name for your TLS certificate. The virtual service is the resource that ties the gateway and the service. You specify through what the gateway you want to expose your service and the service to which you want to route the traffic later. Here's the example how to do the HTTP to HTTPS redirect. Speaking of the pass-through, you can route the traffic to your end service and then do the TLS termination on that. How to do that you can see on the screen. You set the TLS mode to the pass-through and then it should work. On the port routing, you can accept the traffic on the port 80 on your gateway and route to your application on the port 443, for example, for the HTTPS traffic, or for the HTTP it might be whatever port you use for your application. If you get the task where you ask to reach some external service through single endpoint, you can use the Egress gateway for that. The workflow looks like that. You have the pod, all the traffic is routed through the sidecar, and then it reaches the Egress gateway and goes directly to external service. To implement that, you need to have at least two resources, the gateway and the virtual service. If you install the Istio with the registered only mode, that means that you will not be able to access any external endpoints unless they are specified with the service entry. Here's the example of the Egress gateway. We specify the labels to bind it to the ports of the Egress gateway running in the Istio system namespace, the ports we go through, and the hosts. Yeah. And then the service entry. When we want to access the API external.com, for example, we specify it like that. The resolution is set to DNS, but it also might be the static. Then you need to specify the IP address of this endpoint. And here is to use the external gateway. You need to set two gateways essentially in your configuration. Here are they. That's for the internal traffic and that's for the external traffic. First, if you want to go to this host name and the traffic is internal, you go to the mesh gateway and then the traffic is redirected to the Egress gateway ports. And after that, the Egress gateway ports are getting redirected to the actual external endpoint. So that's what you need to have in a single virtual service. On the traffic management, the quite important resource, I would say the main resource for the exam is the virtual service. It can do a lot. Let's go over the examples. Here are the timeouts, the retries, delays, and the abortion. You can abort the traffic with some certain percentage and specify the status for it. Here how you can do the mirroring. For that you need to specify the subsets and you can mirror the percentage of the traffic to the different host. The destination rule. The destination rule is the resource that you might use for the circuit breaking and specifying the subsets of your applications. You can use the labels to find the services, and here's how you can describe the subsets. Here's the example of the circuit breaking. You can have the retrials if the endpoint you're trying to reach is returning the 500 errors. As I mentioned before, if your outbound traffic policy is set to registry only, the sidecars will block all the traffic that is not defined. So you will need to use the service entry to whitelist that to register the service. Also, you can combine the service entry and workload entry to use the Istio features for your application. You can use the load balancing methods, for example. Here's the example of the service entry once again, and the workload entry. You can use these labels in the destination rule, for example, later to add this resource to some subset. Yes, as you know, you can use the subsets in the Istio virtual services to do the traffic splitting or the mirroring. That resource you can specify if your workloads need the MTLS. With the permissive mode, it allows both the plain text and the encrypted traffic. With the strict, only the strict traffic. If you apply this resource in the Istio system namespace, that means that it will be set the cluster-wide. Yeah, if you set that as the strict, that means that all the workloads with the sidecars in your cluster require the strict mode, so that means the encrypted traffic. And if you want to use the permissive, you will need to create additional peer authentication resources. The authorization policy is kind of the firewall resource where you can specify who can talk to whom. Here's the example of the deny all, and as mentioned on the previous slide, the deny action is always evaluated first and has the highest priority. A deny rule will always win against an allow rule. So if you have some allow rule and it doesn't work, one of the reasons might be that you have the deny rule. The authorization policy, here's another example where we load the traffic for the service with the labels up my app, and the traffic might be coming from the application that is running with the service account like that in the Istio system namespace, and it will allow only the get operations. Okay. You can also use the sidecar resource. You know that you might enable the sidecars with the labels, but also you can create the sidecar resource. And with that, you can specify the set of the services, like labeled services, for what you can inject the sidecars. And also here you can specify what the namespace your workload can talk to. This one is the current namespace, and this one is the Istio system namespace. If something goes wrong, you can use the Istio CTL analyze command or the Istio CTL proxy config, and definitely you can read the logs of the application and of the Istio-D. Okay, hope it was helpful and you will pass the exam.